Hey, I want to talk about the movie Coming to America, basically the sequel to the 80s classic Coming to America, which was an amazing film. Now, I don't want to turn this into a movie review channel, but sometimes I want to talk about different things other than wrestling and politics. So, let's talk about this movie. First, we're going to use the David Mamet 4 Questions of Craft to this basically to talk about what this movie is initially about, and then we're going to give you some general thoughts about how I feel about the movie. Too long, didn't listen. This movie was terrible. It was absolutely awful, full of ham-fisted nostalgia, but Wesley Snipes was really good. Now, I'm not going to give this movie the respect it deserves. This movie, I don't know the names of any of the characters outside of the ones from the original movie, so I'm not going to go into any of that. But let's go through the 4 questions of craft. We've done this before. 1, what does your hero want? What is the desires of the hero in this character? The hero is Akeem. So what does Akeem want? Well, Akeem wants to find his long lost son in America. He finds out that he has a long lost son. He was drugged and had sex with some loud hood rat when he was in America 30 years ago, and she gave birth to a son. This is told to him via a witch doctor. We're going to get to African stereotypes in a minute, but this is told to him through a rich witch doctor. So he hops on an airplane to go back to Harlem to find his son. So what are the obstacles in the way? Well, the obstacles is he doesn't know where his son is, nor does he know the woman. He doesn't remember the woman who he had the child with. So this is where Semi comes in. Semi is the one who set up the date and told him all about this, told the woman that he was a prince and she, date raped him or whatever the case may be. And so he knows what the woman looks like. He knows where they go through the city to find out where the boy is. This, of course, does not take long at all. Number 3, what happens if he doesn't get it? Now, this comes with the central conflict of the movie, where you get Wesley Snipes' character, who is pissed off that, Akeem did not marry his sister, I believe, 30 years ago. So Wesley Snipes is now the general of a neighboring country who wants to combine his country with Zamunda, and he says, hey, you left my sister at the altar 30 years ago. I'm going to give you an opportunity to make it right. First, you're going to marry your daughter with my son. Akeem says, no, we're not going to do that. So he says, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to kill you because, knowing Zamundan law, no, Zamunda has to have a male heir. And since you have no male heirs, what's going to happen to Zamunda once I take you out? This, of course, leads Akeem to go out and find his long lost son. After he finds out that he has a son, he has to go out and find his long lost son and bring him back and raise him to be a proper heir to Zamunda to take his place after Akeem dies. So number 4, the question is, why now? This is the temporal question. Why does Akeem care about this son now? Well, you have to look at it from the particular, not just because he just got the death threat from Wesley Snipes' character, but also because Akeem's father just passed away. So Akeem, the previous king, who was played by James Earl Jones, he passes away in a very terrible scene, which he says, I'm going to die now, and then proceeds to die. And that was awful. I really could have turned the movie off right there. But to be quite honest, I continued to watch it because I'm a masochist. He finds, after Akeem sees his father die, he becomes, a little bit, reminded of his own mortality. And that what happens to Zamunda when I'm gone, knowing that Zamunda law requires a male heir. So he has to do it right now because his father just died and he's being threatened by Wesley Snipes. So he has to go out and find his long lost son. And what could have been really fun took all of about 25 minutes. That's most of the movie. The movie is right there. That's the bone structure of the movie. You could have played that out through over the course of an hour or so. But that's not what they did. They told that story, that very same story, in about 20 to 30 minutes. The rest of the movie was dedicated to a lot of nonsense. This was a terrible movie and reminded me why I don't turn my TV on. So then let's go through some of the main conflicts of the film. So one of the main conflicts of the movie is after he finds the son, is, of course, the gendered hierarchy. this is the number one issue because the daughter, his oldest daughter, thinks that she should be able to run Zamunda when her father passes away because she knows the culture, she knows the law, she knows everything, and she's a good fighter because she has, stick fighting capabilities. So she's good at everything for the most part. She feels like we don't really need the son because you've got me. But I'm being overlooked because I have a vagina. They even make fun of this when Trevor Noah appears on the screen and makes fun of this by saying he has a penis and that's all that matters. So how do you counteract the pampered princess who knows everything and is really should be really in charge? You get the loser, unemployed, lives with his mama's son, who is, hanging out with Tracy Morgan, and he's essentially a no account nobody living in Harlem. And until Akeem plucks him from obscurity, the guy has literally nothing going on in his life. So that's very interesting. I found that to be very, very interesting. Because if you look at it from a Marxist perspective, you have this male who the only thing about him that is important is that he's male, and therefore he is born into power and privilege without even knowing it. And then it is revealed to him that he is powerful and privileged. And then he is put right in the seat of power and privilege because he is born male, because his daddy is rich. So, but let's continue the story because this is very interesting. So in order to prove himself as being a real prince of Zamunda, the son has to go through these labors. He has to pass all of these various trials, one of which is to take the whiskers of a lion. And of course, this boy is scared of lions because he's a guy from the hood. What the hell did he know about lions? So he is definitely concerned. He has to go through the history lesson, learn how to be a proper royal member of the royal family of Zamunda. So he had to learn how to walk. He has to learn his history, which means he has to learn his ancestors. He has to learn who his grandfather and his father is. All of these different things. And all of that is, all of that is fine. So he is absolutely scared of this lion. And there's a scene in the movie where he's watching the lion from a distance, and the oldest daughter approaches him and is kind of messing with him about, being scared of the lion. So, over time, she sees that he's scared, and she sees that it is for the best of Zamunda that he passes this test. So she actually helps him pass the test. And of course, he proves himself to be a proper prince of Zamunda. Now, the problem with this is that we are not told that the princess had to pass any trials in order to be worthy either. If we want to push the narrative that women and men are equals, why didn't the girl have to pass any trials? She didn't have to do anything. She thought just because, hey, I was born here and I'm the oldest of these 3 children, I should be put in a position. And that's generally what you're supposed to get from the movie, is that she's being skipped over because of her vagina. Of course, and then obviously, the boy is born out of wedlock, so he wouldn't, in a general, more hereditary sense, he wouldn't count anyway because he was born out of wedlock. So this is a very interesting situation, but of course she doesn't have to prove herself. He has to prove himself, and she helps him do so, which I thought was actually nice. Okay, but it actually tells you overall that the sister knows how to fix the problem. The guy just needs his sister to fix the problem for him. That's the central theme of the movie. And then, what's one of the central themes of the movie? Another central theme of the movie is the United States versus the Africans. Now, I shouldn't say versus, but that's kind of how it is. And this is similar to Black Panther, where you had this movie where it's basically African customs, which is very snobbish, very rigid, very obsessed with ceremony and traditions and culture. They're sexist, they're xenophobic. And then you have Black people in America who are loud, always struggling, low class, aggressive, and obsessed with throwing away any type of formality, any type of custom, any type of tradition whatsoever. So when you're looking at this, you have the hustling uncle in Tracy Morgan. You have the warlord in Wesley Snipes. These two, of course, are extra stereotypes. So it's basically a boatload of stereotypes about Africans, a boatload of stereotypes about Americans, and those two things clashing together when you bring all of the ignorant ass Americans to Africa, where they can take pride in walking amongst elephants and having servants because they're low class people who can barely take care of themselves when they were in Harlem, but now they're in Africa with all the rich Africans and they're taking advantage of it. So that you have that going on. That's the bulk of what's supposed to be funny about the movie. That's a lot of the what is supposed to be funny is watching Americans live it up in Africa, but it's not funny. It's none of this is funny, by the way. And this is supposed to be a comedy. None of this is funny. It's all stupid. So, the central theme of the original Coming to America, and this is where I actually do give it some credit, is that one of the themes of the original Coming to America is what Akeem's story is about. Akeem, in the first Coming to America, is being set up to marry this beautiful, submissive princess from another country. You know, when he gets the girl to hop on one leg and bark like a dog. But Akeem decides he wants to go find himself in America, sow his wild oats. So he breaks out from his tradition, his culture. He leaves Africa, goes to America, learns how to be a guy where he's mopping floors, right? He's going to be a average Joe. He's going to learn how to live like an average person, to take care of himself and not live off of his money and his privilege. He's going to go take care of himself. He's taking a risk. You know, he's breaking traditions while at the same time respecting his traditions. And, you know, he finds himself a middle class girl. Her dad owns a chain of restaurants, or owns a restaurant, McDowell's. So he meets this middle class girl whom he falls in love with. She's not the pampered, submissive princess that he is promised back home, but he genuinely likes her. And that is an important piece of the story, because that circle, that theme is still in this movie, because you have the son who is set up to marry, I believe it was the daughter of Wesley Snipes' character, who is this beautiful, hot African woman who is willing to do whatever he wants, and it will be willing to appease Wesley Snipes and bring in their countries together, and it's going to protect Zamunda. And this starry-eyed homeboy from Harlem is like, oh my God, this chick is hot. She's African. She's rich. I don't see why I wouldn't do it. And then he finds out that he's basically being sacrificed. So he ends up falling in love with his hairdresser. You know, the woman who only woman in the movie who really listens to him other than his mom. And, you know, and he becomes similar to Akeem in so much that he starts to find himself. He starts kind of finding himself a little bit in Africa as being, you know, the royalty that he really is. But he still is at his core a normal guy from Harlem. So he breaks out, takes the girl, goes back to America, where him and the hairdresser, the royal hairdresser or something to that effect, are going to get married in this garbage den of iniquity that they call in a church. And that he respects the traditions of Zamunda, but he doesn't want to be handcuffed to that. He wants to marry the hairdresser. He doesn't really care that much about Zamunda and the future of Zamunda. He wants to be himself. He wants to be himself. He wants to be his own man. He wants to walk his own path. Genuinely, that is similar to Akeem's story. You know, it's similar. It's similar enough that they kind of showing that the path of the father goes through the path of the son, and it's very, very similar in that way. So I give them credit for that. But the movie is trash. It is trash. It's full of ham-fisted nostalgia like Salt and Pepper, who haven't been relevant in 30 years. 30 years at least. I mean, they're literally doing take-ons on their own, you know, what a mighty good man, what a mighty good king. They've got En Vogue. There's ceremonies aplenty in the early part of the movie where they're just stopping to do dance numbers. They're just stopping to do old songs. It is just horrible. Okay, this is a horrible movie, and it doesn't do the respect of the original. It is really bad. I to be quite honest, I should mention that when it comes to the central theme, the threat of Wesley Snipes' character, that, if you don't marry my daughter, I'm going to invade and assassinate the king of Zamunda. Well, he gets beaten up by the princess with a stick. She beats him up, and well, she has a little bit of help from Sammy and her sisters, and maybe some other people were there too. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head, but she essentially beat him up with a stick. So they keep teasing this, that she's really the protector of Zamunda. She is the real protector of Zamunda, and she's the one who is more capable than the son, who doesn't care about Zamunda. Remember what I said? He doesn't care about Zamunda. He took off. He left the country to go marry this hairdresser. And the hairdresser, of course, she's like, hey, I'm willing to scale down my lifestyle because I love this man so much, which is hilariously unrealistic. But then you also have that the princess cares so much about Zamunda that she's willing to put her life on the line to protect it from this invading general, Wesley Snipes. So that's it. That is my review of this movie. I don't see. Sometimes we just don't need a sequel. Sequels are not needed all the time, and it actually shows here that they had no real idea for what they were trying to go with this movie, other than, hey, we need to profit off of nostalgia for one. Two, piggybacking off of Black Panther, which has led a lot of people to Wakanda forever, and now it's going to be the Wakandans versus Zamundans. It's all nonsense, man. It's all rich Africans taking. It's all rich Africans. That is such a crazy stereotype, that all Africans are rich, which is weird because when you talk to, like when I used to talk to Africans, they used to think all Americans were rich. Like, so now you have all of these Americans who think all Africans are rich, because all the Africans that they probably ever met can afford to come over into the United States via airplanes, because that's the only way for you to get here. Otherwise, you come on here on a boat. But most of them can send their children. They come from Nigeria, they come from Ghana, or whatever. They come to the United States. They have a little bit of money. They have a little bit of education, a little bit of money. They can take care of themselves. And that becomes the stereotype for black people in the United States, that they think all Africans are rich. But at the same time, they also think that they're spear-wielding witch doctors, because that's what's in this movie as well, is you have literally a witch doctor. And I just kind of was like, oof. If white people had written that movie with a witch doctor, we never hear the end of it. But because it's black people, it's okay. It's weird. It's really weird. I do not like the depictions of Africans in American movies. I don't like it. And I didn't like Black Panther for the same reason I don't like it here. Now, that doesn't mean that some Africans aren't snobbish and, overly obsessed with tradition and custom. Sometimes they are. But I think we can do more. That's like sometimes black people are loud and abrasive and aggressive and don't care about traditions and forms and customs or whatever, similar to Tracy Morgan, who went on TV in this movie and started talking about, Sammy wiping his ass and all this other just crass stuff. And sometimes people are like that. But the stereotype of loud homeboy, his hood rat mama, and all this kind of stuff is not anything that I don't like this stuff. I don't like that it's so heavily based on stereotypes. And that's really what this movie is. It's very, very heavily based on stereotypes, and the set pieces are really terrible. Akeem is not bad. Eddie Murphy, his character is one of the very good things about this movie. Wesley Snipes is legitimately funny. He's the only new addition to the movie that I really liked, to the franchise, I should say. I loved Wesley Snipes' addition to this movie because he's legitimately hilarious. Every scene that features Wesley Snipes is him being legitimately funny. Other than that, Akeem is really good. He's a constant throughout the movie, but everything around Akeem is just bad. Arsenio Hall still sucks. When they go back to the hood and they're doing all their Trump stuff in the barbershop, because of course we have to talk about Trump. They've just got Trump stuff all over the place. It doesn't have the same feel as the original. They brought in, what was that shit, sexual chocolate. They brought them over. I think they brought them to Africa. It was just kind of like, it's nah, pass. This movie gets a thumbs down. This movie sucks. All right. Thank you guys, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you guys for listening to me rant about this movie. Hopefully you don't watch it. Don't give. I think it's Amazon that made this movie. Don't give them any money for this movie. And spare yourself like an hour and a half. All right, peace.